Hi, in this session I'll explain to you how we can create AJAX-enabled web parts. In the previous videos we've seen how to create code-only web parts and visual web parts. In this session I'll explain to you how we can introduce AJAX functionality to our visual web parts. Before I explain you the code in Visual Studio, let me take you to some basic concepts of AJAX, which is responsible for suppressing the postbacks from user, and it does the postbacks asynchronously with lots of JavaScript code. Obviously, the script manager object is responsible for running AJAX behind the scenes by putting up a lot of JavaScript code. And the script manager is obviously it's a non-visual control, and it loads the necessary JavaScript to do asynchronous calls. Most of the time, so every SharePoint page is derived from a master page, obviously. So the master page does have the script manager object, so we can rather straight away go for AJAX functionality to our visual web parts. But at times there may be some custom master pages that may not have the script manager, and then you cannot have AJAX running on your web part. So let me show you a simple example to create an AJAX-enabled web part. So I'm going for an empty SharePoint project, and I call this as exercise 6 and say OK. I'm going to deploy this as a form solution, and I'm trying to create a new visual web part. I'll call this as AJAX-enabled web part demo, and I say OK. So now you will see an AJAX file. I can double click on my AJAX file, and from the toolbox, first of all from the AJAX extensions, I'm actually dropping an update panel. And inside an update panel, I'm actually dropping my grid view control. We can apply some styles to the grid view. Also, for this grid view, I can enable paging, so I can say allow paging to true, and let the default page size to be 10, or we can reduce the page size to, let's say, 5. Perfect. So now we have an AJAX file, we have a visual web part that's having an update panel. Inside update panel, I'm having a grid view control whose paging has been enabled. Now I'll simply take you to the AJAX.cs file. Again, please make a point. Your user control is inherited from web part class, unlike from the class user control, which was the case in SharePoint 2010. Because now Microsoft has combined both the classes, and they're compiling them into a single DLL file. Thus, visual web parts can also be deployed as sandbox solutions now. Now, in the AJAX.cs file, the first thing that I would like to do is to call a function called as bind grid view, which was the same was used in the previous video. So I'm calling a bind grid view function, and then I'm having a simple function to load the data from that table called as production.product. Let me take the necessary using directives by pressing Control dot. So I have system.data and system.data.sql client. So I'm just trying to retrieve the top 50 products where color is not null into a data set, and that I'm taking into a default view and giving the data view as a source to the grid view one, and finally closing the connection. You can also notice the connection string server is dot. I will say data source, in fact data source as dot, and the initial catalog as AdventureWorks 2012, and we have the username and we have the password. Everything is nice. Now to test the AJAX functionality, I'm actually trying to implement the selected page index changed event. So I'm trying to double click on the page index changed event. So now for this event we're going to write a simple code. sorry, it's page index changing, not page index changed. Let me take this off. And then in the properties of my grid view, I'm going for the page index changing event. So in the page index changing event, we have to recall the bind grid view function. So by saying grid view one.page index equal to e dot new page index, and we are simply calling the bind grid view function one more time. So till now, if we can notice in the AJAX file, I directly have the update panel, and within the update panel we have the grid view. We haven't really dragged and dropped the script manager control. The reason is we assume all the SharePoint master pages have the script manager, so I don't have to really go ahead and try to drag and drop the script manager. So how do we do that in the case? We have to do that manually by programmatically by ourselves. In case if you really wish to check, first we can verify whether the script manager is found at the very zeroth control on the page or not. You can see I'm actually trying to override the onInit function. If the page is not equal to null, and I'm trying to use the system.web.ui, and script manager dot get current of page equal to null. That means if it cannot find a script manager in this page, then we're trying to add the script manager by ourselves by saying page dot form dot controls dot add at the zeroth cell, zeroth position I should say, we're adding the script manager by ourselves. If the master page already has a script manager, then it will not get into this if condition. Everything is perfect. So let's go ahead and try to build our solution. And we already have an onInit function. So what I can do, I can actually cut this code and place it here. And we can remove this onInit function by ourselves. Now let's try to build the solution one more time. And we have an issue here, so by mistake I deleted that event, so I will remove these two lines as well and try to build the solution one more time. So all is well now, and now it's time for me to deploy the solution. So once it gets deployed, we'll try to drop this web part onto our home page. So let's go back to the home page. And we'll open the page in the edit mode, and we will insert our new web part. If you can see the web part what we have just created, and we have actually kept that into the custom group itself. So we'll pick our web part from the custom group and we'll drop it onto this page. And then as I try to switch between the pages, we shouldn't see the post box. So let me try to open the page in the edit mode, and I click on insert. We click on web part, we go to custom, I click on AJAXEnabledWebPart, we click on add. Now we should be able to see the records from the products table. Almost we have some 10 pages of data, so because I'm selecting top 50 records, and that to the page size I left it as 5. Now I simply save and close this page. Now as we click on the second page and then the third page, you can see the page is not getting reloaded. This icon is not spinning, but still we are actually able to switch to the next pages. So that is where AJAX is making the calls asynchronously behind the scenes with a different thread, and thus the postback is not transparent to the end users. That's how the script manager control can be added at runtime programmatically by ourselves in case if it cannot find the script manager in the master page, then it actually executes this line. But yes, in my scenario, my master page definitely has a script manager control, because by default, SharePoint 2010 or 2013 websites are AJAX enabled, so we don't have to make any kind of changes in the web.config, unlike in the earlier versions of Visual Studio. So that's it. So that's how we can create AJAX enabled web parts. Thanks for watching.